Puneet Sahani is back with us. Puneet, you heard the ambassador there, soft but very firm and very candid in what's happening on ground. Is this encouraging news if there is a crackdown that's happening, or would you like to see more done?
So, Namaste Anand, and
Namaste.
I would like to congratulate you that, Trudeau has finally left our country. And now coming back to the question, I think there are three aspects of it. Like first is like this Khalistanis and this Canada and then India, right? There are three. So this Khalistanis, they are basically, first you have to understand you cannot deal with them because they are people driven by an ideology, right? So they are thugs, they are criminals or whatever. And the thing is, when you talk about politicians, I think now they have infiltrated the system so deeply that actually that they are weighing the politicians, then politicians supporting them. To give you an example, the biggest tragedy that happened in Canadian history is this Air India bombing, right? So I was telling you before, like no politicians openly says about it, so much so that 80% of people, Canadian population doesn't know much about it. And if they have to say, for example, the guy who is opposing Justin Trudeau, Pierre Poilievre, who is probably going to be the next prime minister, if he has to say something like, for example, he opposes this, tableau of Mrs. Gandhi being paraded, being shot, he doesn't say it on Twitter, but he hides on his website. So the politicians in Canada are just like terrified, and the envoy has security, and like he will go back. But a person who is living in Canada, just imagine an ordinary person. Like, what can you do against these goons? So it's basically a complete mafia who have held the population hostage. And I don't see actually this resolving anytime soon. So what the Indian government has finally done is taken a firm stand. And, they have connected all these things. They are into gang crimes. They are into immigration fraud and all these things. So that is all very welcome. But I think we need to do more. For example, who is wagging all these things, Trudeau and all, is WSO.
Correct.
Who has basically, submitted lies to the inquiry that was looking into Air India bombing? WSO. Who was supporting this? Indian government should basically declare like a proscribed organization. And that will also push, because Canada is not going to act by itself because they are so terrified of them. But if the Indian government pushes that as a proscribed organization, then it may act. And there is also here, I'll give you one point. You see this Air India bombers, they bombed the plane in 1985, right? Yeah. Their inquiry said, okay, BabbarKhalsa is responsible behind. But do you know, Canada is such an easygoing country that they didn't ban BabbarKhalsa. When it was banned after September 11. When the Americans said, now we have to get serious about terrorism. And this BabbarKhalsa, then Canada was like, oh, yes. So they bombed the place in 85. The Canadians' investigation said, yes, this has happened. But they banned BabbarKhalsa only in 2002, after September 11. So this is what we have to bring international pressure against these Khalistani groups, and then Canada may act, because that is the history. They don't act by themselves.
कुछ देश होते हैं जो दूसरों से dictation लेते हैं. That's there. So
the fact that now Gurdwaras are playing host to the so-called referendum, public schools are being used to put up posters which have got images of weapons, of Bhindranwale. How deep-seated is the problem really in Mr. Trudeau's country?
So thank you for inviting me, Panja. So, it's a bit tricky. So the thing is, of course, Trudeau is going to end in disgrace, as we saw, his legacy is all tattered. But when he goes, this problem will not end, because, this Khalistanis have infiltrated the Canadian democratic institutions and completely undermined them. And this is like a mafia operation. So, when you have a mafia, of course, they have held the population hostage. So nobody dare speak against them. And also, the politicians are afraid of them. So to give you an example, when Mrs. Gandhi's float was taken out, nobody dared condemn it. The one, I think, the member of parliament, her name is Anita Anand, she tried speaking against it, and you have to see the harassment she got. On the other hand, when this low-life Khalistani, thug, he runs a small Gurdwara, and, he was killed in all probability by a gangland hit. They got so many MPs to issue statements for, this Khalistani thug. And, this is how it runs. They have it's kind of like a Muslim brotherhood that they have entered. And I give you an example, Padmaja. So we know, of course, I'm no supporter of Operation, Blue Star. It was a blunt, carried very, consequences. So KS Brar wrote a book, Blue Star, the True Story. So what the Khalistanis are doing, I am holding it. They are saying we are publishing a Punjabi version, right? And it is all lies in his name, in the name of KS Brar. And they are saying, what I did was very bad. They were very great. We lost it. And how many people, Indian Army officers were killed? Indian Army soldiers were killed? 15,000. So the thing is, they lie shamelessly. They have no conscience. And this is the contempt they have for average Khalistani as well. Like, this is their brain, that we will tell them any lies and, they would believe it. But these are just like, a criminal mafia has infiltrated the Canadian institutions. And to get them out would be very, very hard. So even I don't know the next prime minister, I don't know what he would be able to do. But Canada is going to be an antagonistic country and going down the drain itself for, I think, the coming years.
Canadians are not in favor of this, just given the kind of coverage he has got, people saying that he has very few friends. Even in India during G20, I think the messaging was very, very clear. There has to be some huge importance and political compulsions which make Trudeau pass off these frankly seditionist protests as free speech. What are his compulsions, Puneet Sahani?
So, ma'am, there are two things. So, like, A, they have terrorized the system. Now, I don't think, it's the, the lunatics running it. They also, you have to understand the woke virus. Like, when they do something wrong, it's like communism. And the results are disastrous. They don't think, okay, like, we did something wrong and we should self-reflect. They think we have not done it enough. And we should actually do more of socialism or, more of this woke mindset. Then maybe we'll get the success. And he has basically destroyed the Canadian society by, doing this. And, to give you a point that how Sikhs are opposed to it, at the same Gurdwara where this referendum was happening just yesterday, I tell you, 25 years back, a long time back, they created such a nuisance there that, the Canadian armed police had to come with sniffer dogs and helicopter and also. And then and it was all for the control of the Gurdwara. They are violent elements. At that time, the Supreme Court got involved. Like, what the hell is happening? And they were like, we are going to monitor the election. And when the Supreme Court of British Columbia monitored that election of that Guru Nanak Sikh temple, would you believe 40,000 people came out to vote in a small country like Canada 25 years ago? You cannot get this many people even today in Delhi to vote for a Gurdwara election. And what was the result of it? First to last, Khalistanis lost the election. And among the top losers was this father of Harjeet Sajjan that, again, Justin Trudeau foisted on, patriotic Sikhs, this thug Khalistanis. So they have no support. But what can you do when they go after your daughters or they go after your children? And, I don't want to make a spectacle of, I have to also suffer a little bit. But these people, I have always been making the case, and we don't have time here, but these are as nasty, as violent as jihadis and way more vile. So what do you do with these people if the state is compromised and doesn't have the will or the clarity to crack on it? Of course, everybody goes silent.